Good morning, children. Once again, I welcome you in history class. And in this chapter 11, though I have given you the complete concept and description of the main topics, but once again, the important part I am going to take up. And in the previous topics, I have just explained that how the problem was started between Arabs and Israel, and later the Palestinians were removed by the king of Arabia, and they were scattered in the various parts of the world. And moreover, about Arabia, I had also told you that Arabia was a part of the ancient civilization, and Arabia was a very important, or we can say was a part of Palestine, and Palestine was the homeland of Jews. And when the Jews were removed by the king of Arabia, so they formed PLO, Palestinian Liberation Organization, and not only they were demanding just for the freedom from the domination of the other countries, but especially they wanted to have a proper homeland. And in that we had also seen that how UNO had helped these Jews people to get a proper homeland, and the other countries also, especially USA and Britain, also helped the Jews, because Jews were mainly given problem by the German dictator. And today we have to see that basically there was a Kippur War. So first of all you have to understand what was Kippur War. So this Kippur War was a part of the Arabs and Israel conflict. So Kippur War played an important role, and just because of the Kippur War incidents, the more confusion, the more problems were occurred. So once again I am telling you, Kippur War was the part of the Arab and Israel conflict. Now today we have to see when there was a 6-day war between the Arabs and the Israel. So what were the consequences of the war? So here we have to see that heavy casualties have been taken place in Israel. So there was a heavy loss of man, many people were killed, heavy casualty have been taken place, and in this way the main result was, though there was a defeat, but it was shown in a heavy casualty form. Then if we see the second consequence here, it says that Egypt suffered military defeat, though Israel got victory, but the heavy casualties have taken place in both the countries, in Egypt as well as Israel. So in Egypt, it says suffered a military defeat, a violence, we can say, or they were not having proper advanced weapon like Israel used to have, because Israel was also supported by the other European countries. So about Egypt, it says the Sadat, who was the president of Egypt, he was not able to face the attacks or aggression of Israel, and so there was a military defeat. Then for Syria, about Syria here it says that Yom Kippur War was a great disaster. So Syria was also badly affected, right? Why? Because of the Arabs and Egypt's conflict in the form of the Kippur War. So Kipper War was a big disaster proved for Syria, and Syria was affected badly. Then Arab oil producing states. So whatever oil producing states were there, they put pressure on USA and on the other European countries. As a result, there was a shortage of oil in the maximum European countries. So these were the main consequences. So let's see first again heavy casualty. Then Egypt suffered military defeat. Then Yom Kippur War was a big great disaster for Syria. And fourth, that Arab oil producing states put pressure on USA and on the other European countries. Now our second topic is Camp David and the Egyptian-Israeli peace negotiation, which was taken place in 1978 and 1979. So what is David Camp? David Camp is a place, right? So here it says that after Yom Kippur War, the Egyptian president Sadat realized that Israel should not be attacked again in the war manner. So in this way, because the peace talks or the negotiations were about to start between Egypt and Israel, so the main role was played by the Egyptian president Sadat, and it said that after the war, which war? Yom Kippur War, that Israel should not be attacked again. Then secondly, it says like Egypt, Israel was also having economic problems. So like Egypt, there were problems in Egypt also, there were problems in Israel also. What type of economic problem? There was heavy expenditure on the arms, on the military, and the other economic problems also, because due to the war, the economic life of the country as well as of the people were badly affected. So it says in both the countries the economic problems were same, so why not to have a negotiation between both the countries. So this was the effort of the Egyptian president Sadat. Then third point says that US president, who was the US president that time? Jimmy Carter. So he took initiative. He took initiative for what? To arrange peaceful talks between Israel and Egypt, to have negotiations and to end up the war and to help each other and to settle down the peace in Israel as well as in Egypt. So the credit goes to Jimmy Carter, who started negotiation. So they decided in 1978-79, when at Camp David, kind of a meeting was arranged by Jimmy Carter. So between both the countries, some terms and conditions were decided. And what were those terms and conditions? And they were, first term says that war came to an end. The talks had been taken place in a way that whatever conflicts were there, whatever distrust was there, it was ended up with the peaceful talks, and the war between Egypt and Israel came to an end. Then second point says that Israel supposed to vacate Sinai. The Sinai place was captured by Israel. The Israel was asked to vacate Sinai. Then third point says that Egypt removed blockade. Which blockade, which type of a ban, which was put up for the ships? Which ships? Israeli ships. Where? On Suez Canal. So when that Egypt put up a blockade on the entry of the Israeli ships, merchant ships on Suez Canal, that was also removed. So it was a result of the peaceful talks that blockade was removed and the entry of Israeli ships on Suez Canal were allowed. Then fourth point says that it was promised, Sadiq promise that no more attack on Israel. In future, they will not attack on Israel and the complete peace should be maintained, and whatever oil producing areas were there, that Egypt will allow Israel that they can have export with the other countries. So in this way we had seen that due to the effort of Jimmy Carter, the problems or the war which had taken place approximately for 6 days, and after that whatever consequences were there, both the countries, Egypt and Israel, both were affected economically, militarily, and there were too much destruction in both the countries. So the initiative was taken by the President of USA that in this way the other countries will be affected, the global peace will be destroyed, and moreover the members of UNO were also in favor that to end up this war by peaceful methods. So negotiations were decided, and according to terms, the peace was maintained between Egypt and Israel at Camp David, and there it is known as Camp David Agreement or Camp David negotiations, which had taken place in 1978 and 1979. So this was the main important topic which shows that how the problems were started, and later the Jews were also given a proper homeland, and how the war, because of the conflicts or because of the distrust between Egypt and Israel had been taken place, and later when too much disturbance and there was involvement of the other countries also, so how to maintain peace, this decision or this initiative was also taken. So in this way we had seen in the Arab-Israeli war that how the Camp David and the Egyptian-Israeli peace was maintained or accord was maintained by the efforts of the Jimmy Carter. So once again, if I see that totally the terms and conditions, and both the countries, Israel and Egypt, they both were ready to follow, right? Whatever places they captured or occupied, they had to release those places, and mainly the trade, because economically both the countries were affected. So economically, how they can help, that Egypt remove the blockade from the Suez Canal, and the Israeli ships were allowed to enter. And moreover, in for future, that it was promise was made that no attack was made on Israel. So this was the chapter, and I have already given you the correct answers of the short questions and important structured questions, so you please prepare for your exam. That's all for today.